Imagine for a moment that everything you struggle with every day, every fear, every doubt, every feeling of insecurity, these are not just obstacles to overcome. They are clues, a map leading you toward your true purpose. Think about it. What if the key to understanding who you really are and why you are here is hidden precisely in those parts of your soul you're trying to ignore? In this series, we'll embark on a journey into the depths of the human psyche. This won't be dry theory or abstract philosophy. We'll talk about things that directly affect your life, about the hidden power each of us carries within, even if we're afraid to admit it. Today we'll explore one of the most profound and transformative ideas in psychology and philosophy, Carl Gustav Jung's theory of the shadow. Jung believed that every person has a hidden side, a part we conceal even from ourselves. He called it the shadow. You'll discover that the shadow is not only a source of fear, guilt, or shame. It is also a reservoir of energy, creativity, and strength we keep locked away from ourselves. And if you are ready to be honest with yourself, if you are willing to step toward this hidden side, then this journey may become a turning point in your life. In the end, you will understand. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your guide. To understand this, we need to start with the basics. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, a student and colleague of Sigmund Freud. But while Freud focused mainly on sexual instincts and unconscious desires, Jung went further. He wanted to understand the human being in all its fullness, from personal experiences to myths, religions, and archetypes. One of his greatest discoveries was the concept of the shadow. But what is it? Jung called the shadow that part of the personality we reject, everything we consider unacceptable, shameful, or inappropriate. Think about it. When you get angry, then tell yourself, no, I shouldn't feel this way. When you feel envy, but hide it behind a mask of indifference. When you dream of something but dismiss it as silly or childish, all of this goes into the shadow. Jung explained it this way: we are born whole with the full range of qualities. But society, parents, school, culture, all of these teach us this is good and that is bad. Being smart is good. Being lazy is bad. Being kind is good. Being angry is bad. Being strong is good. Being vulnerable is bad. And in order to meet expectations, we start suppressing the qualities we're not allowed to show. We push them deep inside. That's how the shadow is born. But here's the paradox. The more we suppress our shadow, the more it influences us from within. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow shows up in irritation, in fears, in compulsive reactions. It can break through in dreams, in sudden outbursts, in strong emotions that seem disproportionate to the situation. And the most surprising part, the shadow doesn't only contain what we consider bad, it may also hold our best qualities. For example, you may have been a child who loved to draw, but were told art is not serious. Your creativity slipped into the shadow. You may have enjoyed being in the spotlight, but were told it was selfish. Your charisma went into the shadow. You may have felt a natural sense of leadership, but were trained into obedience. Your strength sank into the shadow. So it turns out that our shadow is not only a storehouse of suppressed fears, but also a treasure chest of gifts we've forgotten to open. That's why working with the shadow is not about fighting yourself. It's about returning to yourself. Jung called this process individuation, the path of becoming a whole person who embraces all of their sides, both light and dark. And paradoxically, that's what makes a person truly alive. To understand why the shadow has such power over us, we need to go back to the beginning, to our childhood. A child is born free. They laugh when they're happy, scream when they're angry, cry when they're hurt. They have no internal censor. They express everything they feel, but gradually the world begins to teach them rules. Don't cry, you're a boy. Don't get angry, good girls don't behave like that. Don't be too loud. Don't be too ambitious. Every time we were corrected, shamed, or criticized, we drew the conclusion, this quality in me is bad. Better hide it so people will love me. Step by step, the persona is formed, the mask we wear to be accepted by society, and in parallel, the shadow forms, everything we repress so that the mask appears right. Jung compared it to a dark room where we store everything that doesn't fit into the image of the ideal self. But the more we store there, the noisier it becomes. Imagine you have a huge inflatable ball and you try to hold it underwater. The harder you press, the stronger it tries to burst out. The shadow works the same way. Repressed emotions and qualities start to emerge unexpectedly in sudden outbursts of anger, in intense envy, in obsessive thoughts, in dreams and fantasies we feel ashamed of. And the most interesting part, the shadow often shows itself through other people. You've probably noticed, sometimes someone irritates you for no reason. Maybe a colleague is too self-confident, or a friend talks too much, or an acquaintance dresses too boldly. Why does it bother you? Because they are expressing something that exists in you as well, something you've hidden in your shadow, Jung said, everything that irritates us in others can lead to the understanding of ourselves. Here lies the key. What we hide doesn't disappear. It continues to live inside us and looks for a way out. But can this process be turned to our advantage? Yes, and that is precisely the path of working with the shadow. Let's take a look at how the shadow makes itself known in everyday life. 1. Emotional triggers. You're talking to someone and suddenly feel strong irritation. You watch a movie and get chills from a scene that others perceive as normal. You hear someone's opinion and it makes you angry, even though it shouldn't. This is the shadow at work. Strong emotional reactions act like beacons, pointing to the parts of yourself you've repressed. 2. Dreams. Jung paid great attention to dreams. He believed that the unconscious speaks to us through them. Dreams often contain images that symbolize our shadow. Pursuers, monsters, frightening scenes. Sometimes, however, it's the opposite. Dreams in which you do things you would never do in real life. This is no coincidence. It's the language of your shadow looking for a way to emerge. 3. Projections. When we don't acknowledge a quality in ourselves, we begin to see it in others. For example, if you don't recognize your aggression, others will seem too rude. If you don't acknowledge your greed, you'll see greedy people everywhere. If you don't recognize your need for validation, you'll be irritated by those who show off too much. This is called projection. The world becomes a mirror reflecting what we reject in ourselves. 4. Relationships. Often, close relationships are the best detectors of the shadow. Partners, friends, colleagues can trigger our strongest emotions. Why? Because they activate our deepest shadows. Ever feel like this person is deliberately pressing my buttons? In reality, it's your shadow showing up through them, saying, "Look, I'm here too." 5. Creativity and desires. Sometimes the shadow appears as a strong attraction to something we're afraid to admit. Someone feels drawn to music but considers it not serious. Someone dreams of performing on stage but tells themselves, "No, that's silly." Someone feels a pull toward travel but hides it behind the mask of a responsible adult. This is also a manifestation of the shadow. It reveals not only our fears but also our hidden gifts. To better understand the concept of the shadow, Jung turned to mythology, legends, and art. He believed that throughout history, humanity has been telling the same stories. Within them are universal archetypes that live in each of us. And one of the central themes of these stories is the hero's encounter with their shadow, the hero and the monster. In myths, there is almost always a moment when the hero must face a monster. Heracles battles the Hydra, Perseus meets Medusa, Beowulf descends into Grendel's lair. What do these monsters symbolize? The shadow. The part of ourselves that must not simply be defeated, but recognized and integrated. In myths, victory is not about destroying the monster, but about gaining new strength. Heracles defeats the Hydra and becomes stronger. Perseus kills Medusa and uses her head as a weapon. Beowulf, having slain the monster, gains glory and purpose. Modern stories. The same logic applies to modern myths. Think of Luke Skywalker. He becomes a true Jedi only when he acknowledges the darkness within himself and confronts his own rage. Or Frodo, carrying the One Ring. His journey is not just about fighting Sauron, but also about resisting the temptation of power within himself. Every great story is, in essence, a story of encountering one's shadow. Art and creativity. Art, too, is full of the shadow. Look at Frida Kahlo's paintings. She did not hide her pain. She made it the center of her art. Think of Dostoevsky's works. His characters are constantly facing their inner darkness. Even music often becomes a way to express what we are afraid to put into words. All these examples are a reminder. The shadow is not the enemy. It is a source of strength, depth, and authenticity. And if myths and art so persistently bring us back to this theme, it must be a universal truth. A person becomes truly themselves only when they face their shadow. Now let's move from philosophy to practice. How can you start working with your shadow? Step 1. Notice your triggers. Whenever you feel an intense reaction, irritation, anger, envy, shame, pause. Ask yourself, what exactly in me did this person or situation touch? Remember, a strong emotion is always a signal. It points to something you are hiding within yourself. Step 2. Write it down. Jung kept journals himself and recommended the same to his patients. Write down your emotions, dreams, and recurring situations. Pay special attention to dream images that scare or confuse you, people who irritate you, situations where you feel uncomfortable. After a few weeks, you will start noticing patterns. Step 3. Acknowledge it. Important. Working with the shadow does not mean acting on every impulse. If you become aware of anger inside you, it doesn't mean you should immediately go argue with people. The point is different. Recognize that the anger exists. It is a part of you. And if understood, it can become a source of power. For example, the ability to set boundaries. Step 4, dialogue with the shadow. Jung suggested the technique of active imagination. Imagine your shadow sitting across from you. Ask it, what do you want? What are you protecting me from? What will I lose if I ignore you? It may sound strange, but try writing down the answers that come to mind. You'll be surprised how deep they can be. Step 5. Take small steps in life. Allow yourself to express even a little of what you usually hide. If you've always hidden your creative side, start with a simple drawing or try writing a text. If you've suppressed your confidence, then allow yourself to voice your opinion. If you've hidden your vulnerability, try honestly sharing your fears with a close person. Every small step is a way to integrate your shadow. Conclusion. Working with the shadow is not a struggle. It is a process of dialogue, acceptance, and gradually reclaiming your wholeness. The more you become aware of your shadow, the less it controls you, and the more energy and freedom you gain for a truly authentic life. Relationships are a mirror. They reflect not only what we love about ourselves, but also what we refuse to acknowledge. Why do the people closest to us often irritate us the most? Why are conflicts with family, friends, or partners so painful? Jung said, "It is in relationships that the shadow is activated." Projections in love. Think about the beginning of any romantic relationship. We meet someone and feel they're perfect. In reality, at that moment, we are projecting onto our partner everything hidden within ourselves. We are not seeing the real person, but a reflection of our own shadows and light. But time passes, and reality sets in. We begin to notice flaws, and the traits that irritate us the most are almost always linked to our own shadow. Examples. If your partner annoys you for being too lazy, it might reflect your own suppressed need for rest. If your partner's jealousy bothers you, perhaps you don't acknowledge your own dependency on the relationship. If it seems like the person is overly emotional, perhaps you are suppressing your own emotions. Conflict as an opportunity. Most people see conflict as a threat. But in Jungian psychology, conflict is a chance to see your shadow. Whenever you think, they make me so angry, ask yourself, what exactly in me is reacting, and why does it hurt so much? If you view relationships through this lens, every conflict becomes a point of growth. Relationships as a path to wholeness. A partner, friend, or colleague becomes a mirror. And yes, sometimes this mirror is uncomfortable, but it is through this mirror that we learn to accept the parts of ourselves we hide. You could say, the shadow makes love real. Without confronting each other's shadows, relationships remain superficial. And when we become aware of them, genuine intimacy emerges. Now let's talk about another side of the shadow. Its connection to creativity. We're used to thinking that the shadow is only about bad qualities, but that's not true. The shadow hides not only fears and aggression, but also our suppressed talents, dreams, and desires. Suppressed gifts. Think back to childhood. Some were told, don't draw, it's not serious. Others, music won't put bread on the table, you're too dreamy, be realistic. All of this went into the shadow, but it didn't disappear. Jung said, in the place where your wound lies, there also lies your gift. What we hide often becomes the key to our true strength. Examples from life. Look at great artists, writers, musicians. Almost all of them use their own shadow as a source of inspiration. Van Gogh transformed his pain into paintings. Tchaikovsky expressed in music what he could not say in words. Kafka depicted anxiety and the absurdity of existence. They show us that the deeper we look into our shadow, the stronger our creativity becomes. Practice. Dialogue with the shadow through creativity. You don't need to be a painter or writer to use this approach. You can keep a journal and write down your forbidden thoughts. Draw images from dreams or fantasies. Create stories where the characters express what you're afraid to express yourself. This not only releases inner energy, but also helps you understand yourself better. The shadow as fuel. Jung believed that the shadow is like a huge reservoir of energy. As long as we suppress it, this energy destroys us from the inside. But if we integrate it, it becomes fuel for creativity, inspiration, and self-realization. You could say the shadow is raw material. Creativity is the way to transform it. Conclusion. Relationships and creativity are two of the clearest arenas where the shadow shows itself. In relationships, it teaches us honesty and intimacy. In creativity, it gives us the power of self-expression. In both cases, the shadow turns from an enemy into an ally. We've talked a lot about how the shadow is what we hide, but there's another important aspect. The shadow is connected to our purpose. Why? Because the energy that can guide us to our true path often lies hidden in the shadow. Suppressed dreams. Many people don't know what they truly want from life. They try one thing, then another, yet there's always a sense of emptiness inside. Often this happens because their real passion was once rejected. Someone dreamed of painting but was told, that's not a real profession. Someone loved nature but heard, you won't make money with that. Someone wanted to perform on stage but feared judgment. All of this went into the shadow, yet a longing remained inside. Resistance as a clue. Jung said, What triggers your greatest resistance often hides your path. If you're afraid to go public, perhaps that's exactly where your growth lies. If you feel shame expressing creativity, maybe that's your gift. If you've avoided leadership, perhaps that is your challenge. The shadow points to our purpose through what we fear most: integration and power. When we start accepting our shadows, a new energy emerges. This energy can transform into a calling. Example, a person who suppressed aggression all their life may become a protector, advocate, or fighter for justice. Someone who was ashamed of their sensitivity may become an artist or therapist. Someone who feared their own strength may become a leader. Thus, purpose is not something external that we need to search for out there. It is born within, when we stop rejecting parts of ourselves. Purpose as wholeness. Jung believed that a person becomes truly themselves only when they integrate light and shadow. This is what he called the process of individuation, becoming a whole, complete person. And this is the essence of purpose: not to be perfect or convenient, but to be yourself, whole, alive, and authentic. We've explored the personal shadow, but there is an even larger dimension: the collective shadow. What is it? Every individual has a shadow, but entire societies, countries, and nations have one as well. It's everything that a culture refuses to acknowledge. For example, countries that speak of their peacefulness but wage wars. Peoples that pride themselves on spirituality but oppress the weak. Communities that claim to value freedom but fear difference. This is the collective shadow. Manifestations of the collective shadow. The collective shadow shows up in mass hysteria, propaganda, discrimination, and wars. When a society refuses to recognize its dark side, it erupts outward in destructive ways. The history of the 20th century is full of examples. Fascism, communist dictatorships, totalitarian cults, all are manifestations of the collective shadow seizing the masses. Why is this important to understand? Because today we again see collective shadows coming alive. Polarization in society, conflicts, aggression on social media. These are not just bad people. They are expressions of parts of a culture that are repressed and unacknowledged. Personal contribution. You might think, but what do I have to do with this? I don't run any countries. In fact, you do. Every time we work with our personal shadow, we slightly weaken the power of the collective shadow, because society is made up of us. The more people recognize their projections, the less they fall for mass manipulation. The more people accept their fears, the less they look for enemies outside themselves. The more people integrate their aggression, the less likely it is to erupt into war. So, we've walked the path. We understood what the shadow is. We learned where it comes from. We saw its manifestations in life and myths. We explored practical steps. We looked at how it affects relationships, creativity, and purpose. And we even understood how it connects to humanity as a whole. Now the main question, what should you do with this personally? The answer is simple. Notice it. Write it down. Talk to yourself. Don't be afraid to look where you normally wouldn't want to, because it is there, in the shadow, that your gifts are hidden. And if you open them, you become whole. And that means truly alive. Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious." So dare to look into your shadow, because it is there, in the shadow, that the key to your purpose lies.